There are plenty of storylines surrounding this Philadelphia Phillies team, with spring training fully underway and the real baseball being right around the corner. And with the team gathered and expectations beginning to build, one common positive theme continues to pop to the surface, and that is the surprising success of Taijuan Walker at spring training. I want to break down what is being said by Rob Thomson and Dave Dombrowski, what this means for the Phillies moving forward. We know the story with Taijuan Walker. This guy signed to a hefty contract who has not delivered. It does feel like, and this has been my full stance on the Taijuan Walker situation here, that this is a dude who gives it all. He tries. He just does not have it to the level that contract or expectations would command, but maybe that is changing based on what we were seeing coming out of spring training. So I'm going to dive into the recent quotes from both Rob Thomson and Dave Dombrowski, hear from Taijuan a little bit himself, and dive into a couple of stats that could impact and kind of talk about the role for what I could see with him. There's obviously a lot of pitching on this Phillies staff. That's been one of my clear themes of this offseason, that I think they have addressed that side of things, that it leaned into that direction a little bit more extreme, stacking the pitching staff in a way that they may not be able to combat the payroll and level of hitters as some of these other teams looking to contend, but if you can outpitch them, you can pave a path, and that does seem to be the direction the Phillies are heading. Now, before I dive fully into it, do want to remind you guys, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 72.7% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to Phillies Digest just yet. The season is right around the corner, and we have big plans going from start to finish. So we're locked in on baseball season. Me and Luke Arcaney right here on Phillies Digest, and want as many of you as possible a part of the journey with us. Now, to dive into the topic of today, first I want to start out with this quote from Rob Thomson regarding Taijuan Walker, and really painting him in some positive light here. Rob Thomson on Ty, he said, quote, "I'm so proud of him. The work that he's put in, I mean, he looks better than he did when he won 15 games in 2023. At this point of spring training, I'm really pleased with him, just physically. No movement, his athleticism, the ball is coming out hot, the split's fantastic, he's landing his breaking ball. He was good that year in spring training, but I think I think he's better this year." And a pretty glowing report from Topper there, from the manager, and obviously that is one of the looming storylines for this Phillies team. To kind of reflect on things, I hate to kind of, hold money against these professional athletes to an extent, but what a contract means to me is expectations. And for Taijuan Walker to call it out directly here for what he is bringing on, the contract that he is holding in is he's got $18 million left on this season and $18 million left on next season. And obviously, this was a guy who was basically taken away from the rotation last year. The Phillies did a pretty nice job, I would say, PR-wise, for kind of coding things up and making it easier on him. And again, this is not a guy that I'm out here actively attacking for underperforming. I think Taijuan tries his best and really looks to compete. I honestly give him a great deal of credit for the way that he faced the music last year, where things were absolutely falling apart on the field for him not having any sort of control or just really being able to be the quality of pitcher that the team needed him to be. And all he did was look right back at every question, every media member, and be like, "Look, man, I gave you my all. I thought I had it today. Clearly I didn't. They were hitting everything I threw, and that's sort of the end of it." And that is the story. To sort of give the numbers on that for Taijuan last year, that he pitched in 19 games, 83.2 innings there. Across that stretch, he allowed 24 home runs, only 58 strikeouts compared to the 107 hits allowed. That comes out to 11.5 hits per 9 innings, 7.1 ERA, and a 1.7 whip there. That is not at all what you want to see from a guy who, I understand he was signed to be one of the bottom of this Phillies rotation, but the bottom line is he wasn't good enough to be that either, and that led to a variety of things that the team had to do, bringing in guys like Tyler Phillips, Colby Allard, that you're trying to cycle through these guys that are sort of fringe MLB guys, and frankly, for a team that had World Series aspirations, that's just not a path that you want to go down, and one that they clearly addressed by, shifting things around this season. And to sort of address what that is overall, to take a look at the starting pitching rotation, Taijuan Walker not even mentioned on it currently, that it is Zack Wheeler at the top, no surprise there. It will be Aaron Nola as the number 2, Christopher Sanchez right there in that same mix, Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo, that is expected to be the starting 5 there. Luzardo is another guy that I think they're sort of banking on a bounce back season. Our guy Luke Arcaney right here on Phillies Digest is all over him on the potential for him to be a potential 1 on a pitching staff. I'm not there with Luzardo just yet. I do think there was some concerning things last year. Would love to be wrong, and I'm certainly open-minded on things. I think getting out of the Miami Marlins organization is a great start if you're looking to, turn your career around, and that's step 1 for him here. So certainly approaching this with an open mind, but I'm just saying here that I'm not as this guy is the guy, the way that Luke Arcaney definitely is on this, and I hope he's right on it. And there's certainly evidence that Luzardo has pitched at some real peaks. We've just seen the valleys as well. But the point being in this is that they have already basically came up with their alternate plan, and this goes without even mentioning Andrew Painter just looming over the shoulder, that at some point he's going to be ready, and another guy that could have top top of the rotation stuff if it translates the way it is expected to. Now, to bring it back to Taijuan specifically here, I also want to kind of point and give him credit for exactly why things are going right. This is not just some coincidence on him turning things around that, he just has it this year. This dude has put the work in, man, and he's been pretty open about talking about it, going through this whole routine with weighted baseballs that he's throwing, and it is that velocity that turned into a significant issue. We were talking about his fastball last year, barely touching the upper 80s. And at the major league level, man, that just isn't going to cut it. And for Taijuan specifically, the velocity looks better this year. He's touching in the lower 90s, which is a great sign for him individually. And Dave Dombrowski also had some glowing words for him. So to highlight what Dombrowski said, he said, quote, he commands his pitches on both sides of the plate away from right-handed hitter, which was not an easy thing for him to do last year. Walker said his splitter, which had been his go-to pitch before he lost feel for it last season, feels back to normal. He wants to focus on improving his slider to turn it into a more consistent swing and miss pitch. Walker had significant struggles with that area of his game in 2024, with his overall whiff rate of 16.7%, ranking in the bottom 1% of qualified MLB pitchers. Even following a more intense offseason than he's accustomed to, Walker isn't concerned about going too hard too early. Quote, I just think about being smart about it, Walker said. I feel really good right now, and I think I'm in a good spot, so I feel like I can let it eat if I have to. After acquiring Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins in December, the Phillies seemingly have 5 rotation spots spoken for, which leaves Walker as the odd man out, barring injuries. Walker briefly spent time in the bullpen role last season after being removed from the starting rotation in late August, but Dombrowski said the Phillies plan to treat Walker as a starter this spring. Walker isn't getting caught up in the depth chart or where his future might lie. Quote, honestly, I'm really just focused on doing what I can do. Not really looking at that at all. Really just focused on my pitching, my command, and that stuff, and whatever happens, happens. I love this outlook from Taijuan Walker here. And again, this is a team guy. This is a dude that even after being kicked out of the rotation, there not being a spot for him on the playoff roster there, he was at the top of the dugout, cheering on the team, being a good teammate, and that's everything that you hope for in a dude there. I have no hate in my heart for Taijuan Walker, and it will be interesting to see how the Phillies do play this. Having too much pitching is a great problem to have. In fact, I don't believe that's a possibility to have too much pitching. I would rather have as many options as possible, and if Taijuan Walker forces the Phillies to make some tough decisions, that is a great thing for the franchise, man. And with that being said, I also don't mind the concept or the game plan of maybe you can showcase this guy a little. Maybe you can pump up the value, the stock, to get belief around the league, and then all of a sudden he could be somebody else's problem if this is the case there. And to give a potential destination for this, I know we mentioned this in regards to Jesus Luzardo, but the Miami Marlins are in an interesting spot right now that they must hit a payroll of $105 million to avoid potential grievance from the MLBPA. That is because you must spend 150% of the revenue sharing money collected. According to SpotTrack, the current estimate of luxury tax payroll sits at just $79.8 million. So if you're looking on to take on some dead money there, Taijuan Walker, come on down. Maybe you can enjoy those last $36 million down there in Miami. State of Florida, good weather, could be a good time for Taijuan. So this is a conversation that I'm not going to dive too deep into, but the point being here that if you can pump up this guy as a legitimate starter that other teams could be interested in, this could work for all parties involved. And at the end of the day, if Taijuan Walker can just be a competent pitcher on this Phillies roster, I have no problem with this guy sticking around. This is not a situation this guy has an ego, has an attitude, is going to be a problem within the locker room. In fact, it's all the opposite of all these things. So for Taijuan specifically, I give him a great deal of respect for the way that he did attack this offseason. I'll be the first one to admit that I'm skeptical that this is even possible, and I'm not crowning him without even seeing him pitch in a live game setting to this point, but I will just say it is encouraging to see this kind of praise coming. I don't think Rob Thomson and Dave Dombrowski are the most, willing to hand out these type of compliments. Both those guys keep it a little bit closer to the vest, and I think Dombrowski is a guy who will shoot you straight about a player a little bit more than we're accustomed to for front office personnel. So I think it's good to see them speaking about that. It's great to see that Taijuan has that focus, has that mindset, and ultimately what happens, happens. He's absolutely right about that. But I think this is a great problem to have, and I'm very curious to see how this shakes out. As the Grapefruit League and kind of the exhibition matches begin to kick off for these spring training games, obviously no real stakes in play yet to this point, but this is a huge opportunity for a guy like Taijuan Walker to prove that this does translate, that this isn't just you going against live game hitters. And for what it's worth, there is a report in live game hitters struck out 6 consecutive down in Phillies camp right down against the real team. So we'll see what overall shakes out, but that's really encouraging if that is the real deal stuff that is going on. Again, this is hearsay. This is little reports, guys tweeting things out, so I'm not going to dive too deep in the specifics here, but there are encouraging signs for Taijuan Walker, and that makes me feel good as a human being, as a Phillies fan, as a guy who wants to root on him and this team. Could work out a little bit more positively than maybe any of us could have thought possible. So the jury is still out to this point. We will see what happens when the real action takes place, and still some decisions to be made as far as how you do structure this. Again, I don't think you can have too much pitching, and I'm a guy who continues to push for, let's keep that 6-pitcher rotation in the back of our mind, maybe limit a little bit of wear and tear on Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola as the season progresses. I know they've pushed back to that theory already, those two specifically liking the routine of a 5-man rotation, but the bottom line is these are great problems to have. We'll see what happens when that situation arises. And shout out to Taijuan Walker for starting to make this organization make some decisions there. So I do want to hear from you guys in the comments before I tune off here. Give your thoughts on what Taijuan Walker's role could look like on this Phillies team. And one more time, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, because again, just 27.30% of you guys watching these videos thus far have subscribed to us here on Phillies Digest. We want to grow this Phillies Digest family as big as possible, and we want you a part of it as well. So make sure you're hitting that button, drop a like on this video, drop your thoughts below, and I'll be back talking with you next time. Peace.